Rast 1, 2. Rast 1, 2.
Xanımlar və cənablar, zəhmət olmasa, hərə oturardı, öz yerini alardı, zəhmət olmasa, biz 10 dəqiqəyə konferans başlayacaqdır. Əgər mümkünsə. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if possible, take your seats.
Salam. Good morning. My name is Fabian Badiger, and I welcome you here this morning to this conference on French and Dutch colonialism on St. Martin. One island, one people, one destiny. Of course, as you know, the conference is organized on our behalf by the Baku Initiative Group, and we're very, very appreciative of the efforts put into organizing this gathering. I'll be your moderator for the conference, and I think we started a little bit late, which is unusual for us, so we're going to go straight into it. I'm going to invite some people to the stage, some very important people, but before I do that, I want to welcome all the dignitaries who are here, and starting, of course, with our own Member of Parliament in St. Martin, the Honorable Mr. Franklin Myers, who is here with us. And also, I believe we have with us Ms. Parvana Valiyeva, who is also a member of the Azerbaijan Parliament. And protocol haven't been served here, so let's see if we can get straight into it. Again, welcome all the dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, freedom lovers. You're welcome to this conference. Now, I have the honor of inviting Mr. Franklin Myers, Honorable Member of Parliament of St. Martin, to give you some opening remarks. Mr. Myers.
Thank you for being such a gracious host. Well, I'll start over. Good morning, dignitaries, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Abbas Abbasov, I bring you warm greetings from the friendly island of St. Martin. We thank you for being such gracious hosts to us, and we thank the Baku Initiative Group for arranging this conference on our behalf. St. Martin is a small island, 37 square miles, located in the northeastern Caribbean. We are divided by two sovereign powers. On the northern side is colonialized by the French, and on the southern side, we are colonialized by the Dutch. It gives me a great sense of warmth to see this initiative by the Baku Initiative Group here, that while we're facing our problems on one side of the world, that you have taken up our fight on this side of the world. So I say thank you for putting us first and foremost in your quest to decolonize colonized nations throughout this world. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a step in the right direction, because as a fundamental right to all human beings, we must be free. We must be free from all rule. We must have the right to self-determination, and we must have the right to ensure our own destiny. I wish you all a very good conference, and to my delegation leader and the members of my delegation leader, Dr. Rhoda Aronell, and all of the members of my delegation, I congratulate you on this effort, and I wish you all a wonderful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Franklin Myers. Now it gives me immense pleasure to invite Ms. Parvana Valiyeva, member of the Azerbaijan Parliament, to welcome you.
Good morning, dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure for me to welcoming you all to Baku at this conference dedicated to decolonization of Saint Martin, one people, one island, one destiny. And I wish successful conference to all participants. Colonialism is not just an occupation. It is a system where colonized must melt colonizers' culture, making them vulnerable to exploitation and erasure of their own identity. This makes people dependent and reinforce inequality. The needs and challenges of owners of the lands, on the other hand, are ignored, and the resources gifted by the God to their lands are used to benefit by the colonizers. Currently, French and Dutch colonialism are one of the most damaging forms of domination. Unlike other forms of colonialism, French colonialism forced people to complete assimilation, stripped away their culture and identity, and adopt only French ways. Erasure of culture and identity means elimination of heritage, which figures out a nation's historical existence. Political imprisonments, forced displacements, violation of human rights and freedom, ecocide, genocide, urbicide, nuclear tests are just some examples of colonialism that people in these overseas territories face on an everyday basis. And their rights to self-determination and freedom are denied. The lasting effects of colonialism in Saint Martin go beyond identity loss and assimilation. The island's people continue to face the consequences of the Franco-Dutch Treaty that is signed by France and Netherlands, controlling the island. These people endured unimaginable injustice, which is a shame to the name of humanity. Dividing the territory into two parts by two colonial rulers caused displacements, tore apart families, destroyed their social existence, and plunged them into despair. Yes, the northern and southern part of Saint Martin are divided by two colonial powers, by two European powers in the 21st century. When the people fly to the sky independently, even they gain lands in Mars. And these developments bill shouldn't be paid by poor nations that are poor because of the rich. The people of Saint Martin are one, although colonialism divided them into two parts, but they face similar fate, similar destiny, as we said. In a purposeful manner, it was calculated to weaken the ability of two parts local people to overcome their shared challenges and also to gain their own independence. The colonial powers used Saint Martin's resources for their own benefit under the false idea of development. But it is apparent that deep economic monopoly, deep economic degradation, in the end, harm to the people of Saint Martin. We, as Azerbaijanis, also struggled from different type of colonialism during former Soviet Union times. And the people were independent, so that we share your concerns, your worry. because there is no language and no nation of the trauma of colonialism. It was the same in Azerbaijan during Soviet Union times, as well as it is the same in Saint Martin. But at the same time, we strongly believe that you will one day get your own independence, as Azerbaijan liberated its internationally recognized territories after 30 years of occupation. Because injustice and aggression cannot be long-lasting. It should be end one day. The fight against colonialism is not just reclaiming about lands, territories, but it is reclaiming about dignity, to have the right to shape your own future. And France and Netherlands must clarify its stance on the people of local people, as well as they should immediately implement UNGA resolution on decolonization, ensuring their rights in the constitution, ensure their independence, and give their rights to develop their own laws, their own constitution. So the people in Saint Martin deserve the right to shape their own lives, their own identity, their own culture. Take the rights pathway. My lands, my rules, my rights. For a sustainable and just future, no one should be left behind. The right to freedom and autonomy in overseas must be respected. Neo-colonialism, all forms of colonialism must be declined in the world, because no one is free until everyone is free. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Valieva. I don't think you could have put it any better. You set the stage already for us for this conference, which is all what this is all about. Now it gives me great pleasure and it's an honor to invite Mr. Abbas Abbasov, Executive Director of the Baku Initiative Group. The acronym or the abbreviation for the Baku Initiative Group is BIG, big. This is big for us.
Thank you very much, Fabienne. Good morning, dear honorable parliament members, distinguished delegates from St. Martin, and dear media representatives. It's a privilege for me to welcome you in Baku at the international conference dedicated to decolonization matters on St. Martin. Also, it is a great honor for me to highlight that today's conference is the 22nd international event organized by the Baku Initiative Group dedicated to consequences of colonialism and decolonization issues. I wouldn't like to take your time with long speeches and thoughts, so we prepared a very interesting agenda for you, conference participants, and I am giving the floor to our esteemed main moderator, dear Fabienne, for commencing the first session. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Abbas Abbasov. Just dawned on me that BIG also spells Notorious B.I.G., the rapper, right? And you definitely would be very notorious with the French and the Dutch. All right, well, let's proceed with the program for this morning. I'd like to invite a very special person to the stage. She is a friend, she's a colleague, she's an Amazon, she's an Agoge, she's a fighter, a warrior for independence on St. Martin. She's been in this struggle now for, I would say, maybe close to 40 years now. And she is the face of independence on St. Martin, Dr. Rhoda Arundel.
Ooh. Wow. Protocol established already. Good morning, everyone. First, on behalf of the One. Okay, so on behalf of One St. Martin Association, thank you for the invitation to share our story from St. Martin with you. I'm not going to do a long speech. You will see from the presentation what we're talking about. But I want to begin by thanking the Baku Initiative Group and Mr. Abbas Amasov. When Fabian said, this is big, this is no understatement. This means a lot to us in St. Martin. And so we are glad that you are with us in this struggle. So this is next. How does this? Y'all know I don't do technology, right? How do I switch this? Come, sir. Next one. Oh, I have to put it on. Yeah. Oh, no. Okay. So as you've heard already, St. Martin is a Caribbean island in the northeastern Caribbean Sea. We are located at 18.2 degrees north and longitude 63.07 degrees west. There's a symbolic border. It's not a real border. It's in the imagination of the French and the Dutch. But there's a symbolic border with 21 square miles of the north is France, as our honorable member said, and 16 square miles in the southern part is the Netherlands. Our population is a little under 100,000 on a good day, 80 to 100,000. We are multicultural, but the majority of us are of African descent. What do we know about St. Martin? In St. Martin, the first peoples that are said to inhabit the island are about 2000 BC. Between 600 and 1300 AD, we know that there are people living on the island, though supposedly not consistently. But during that period, according to one historian, there are indigenous first peoples living there. Another archaeologist, local archaeologist, tells us that there are no Amerindians that are surviving in the historic age. So by the time the Europeans come to St. Martin, they are claiming that there are no people there. But we say that there's more scholarly work needed to be done because we have evidence that there may have been some people there when the Europeans came. What we do know, and I share with you a map of our island in our minds. There is no border in our minds. We are one people. What we have are records of the first European occupation, but they are conflicting. They have Europeans coming at 1627, 1630s. The French and the Dutch each have a different story about who came first. They're conflicting. But we know the initial occupation of the European is somewhere between 1627 and 1631. The French and Dutch were forced out by the Spaniards in 1633, and Africans, even at that period, were the ones that would remain when the French and the Dutch would leave. In 1633, the Dutch West India Company is assuming administration of the entire 37 square miles, but then they are driven out by the Spanish in 1633. And then the French and the Dutch return in 1648 after 80 years of war in Europe. They will come back to our island and they would agree to coexist peacefully, and they would sign what we know as the Partition Treaty, aka the Treaty of Concordia. But what we know from this history, it was not always peaceful. The French and the Dutch were always at war with each other. Between 1633 and 1848, we have at least 10 times our island would change hands between the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, and the British. There was a period in our history without a recognized administration, when the people are just there on their own, taking care of themselves, not the Africans, and there's ownerlessness. When nobody is there, you're doing what you want. And then a decade later, the Dutch are there, completely in charge of the entire island. From early settlement, the number of enslaved Africans remained the dominant group in the space, and most immigrants are English speaking. Our language in St. Martin is English. It's a Caribbean creolized version of the English language. It's a dialect, but we do not speak St. Martin people. But in 1648, when our island is divided by the French and the Dutch, the Africans are considered property. They're not counted as humans. They're counted as property to work on the plantations. And during periods of low production, what Dutch and French plantation owners would do, they would take the property and they would hire them to the neighboring islands. And this is why St. Martin, Anguilla, St. Croix, the Virgin Islands, we have a history of our people moving between these islands, right? And so in St. Martin, culturally, we are closer to Anguilla, which is a British territory, than we are to Curacao or Aruba, which are occupied by the Dutch, or Martinique by the French. We are historically closer to Anguilla, culturally, than we are to the French or the Dutch other territories. The French would bring legal emancipation in 1848, and the Dutch 15 years later in 1863. And what does that mean? The people that are living at that time, colonized or enslaved on the southern Dutch part, would run to the northern part, the French part, because people naturally do not want to be enslaved, do not want to be colonized. We like being free. And so there's a 15-year history in the Dutch part of St. Martin where we recognize our emancipation before the Dutch would give legal emancipation to the other territories. And at this period, when both the French and the Dutch would give their emancipation, they paid the Europeans, they paid them reparations for loss of property. They did not pay the Africans for free labor. And from the inception, Africans and their descendants, we have been fighting for our liberation from both the Netherlands and France. This picture marks a turning point in the history of St. Martin. This is August 8, 2020, after the COVID pandemic, when the French and the Dutch over the years, they have been trying to erect a physical border on our island. And every time they try to put the border, and we insist you will not divide us as a people. Well, then the pandemic hit, and we saw an opportunity to close the border, because the French has a different policy than the Dutch, where the COVID pandemic was concerned, and they decided they would close the border. They tried a first time, a second time, and then the people took to the streets. And the people said, and what do we have? We call this our unity flag, our national flag, because you cannot at this moment of stress wave the French flag or the Dutch flag. You look for your own flag, your one flag to bring your people together and the family. And what you see here are negotiations taking place between the gendarmes. This is on the French part of the border, because we left from the Dutch part, the southern part, and we marched to the border that is now closed, and we had to negotiate because we were prepared that day to pay the ultimate price. And I think they understood that, and it's a very amicable, it looks like a very amicable conversation that is taking place, and eventually they reopen the border. some moments, some very telling moments of the people. This is how we live in St. Martin. We are one people, a very mixed society, but predominantly African. And you can see, I think this gentleman here to the right, to my right, represents the emotions of the St. Martin people at that moment. Representatives today of French and Dutch continue to collaborate to keep us colonized in St. Martin. And as the Honorable Member of Parliament mentioned, the Franco-Dutch Treaty again was signed in 1994. This is not long ago. So they're doing everything in their power to keep us separated as a people. Signed another border agreement in 2023. But there are a number of other pacts and treaties that are signed in Europe, and they do not invite us to the conversation. And so there are a number of treaties that are signed between the Netherlands and France that have implications for us as a people in St. Martin, and we never know about them. Sometimes you see it on a YouTube video, but they don't invite you to the conversation. The Dutch Kingdom Charter was signed in 1954, creating something called the Netherlands Antilles without consultation of the St. Martin people. These 6 islands are put together in the Dutch Kingdom at the time for military purposes of the Dutch as service stations, but the people that are living there are kidnapped, trafficked. And then over the years, St. Martin has become a part of different constellations depending on what the Netherlands wants. Sometimes we are called the SSS Islands, Sabre Station, Sinter Station, and St. Martin, the Dutch Caribbean, so that's a new thing that they're using. And then recently CAS. CAS is called Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin. So even though we are geographically very far apart from each other, we are grouped together again with no regard for our culture, with no regard for our human dignity. As of October 10, 2010, the territory of St. Martin, the Dutch southern part, has been referred to a number of things. Autonomous country within the kingdom. A colony, we know that's for sure, but there's also this thing called constituent state. So they keep looking for names to give us a label so they do not have to give account to the United Nations where you have to report on your colonies. But in St. Martin, we are very much colonized. Recently, they're referring to us as a SIDS, as a small island development state, but according to the Netherlands, in their Ministry of Foreign Affairs, only the Kingdom of the Netherlands can be considered a state. So how are we a SIDS when we're not even a state? Translations sometimes refer to us as a constitution in St. Martin. But the real constitution, that thing called the charter, the kingdom charter, that is the constitution. St. Martin, these other islands, something called the Staatsregeling, and that is what we would translate, I would translate as a linguist, as a basic law of states regulation. So I cannot even refer to my constitution as a constitution because there is a superior constitution above mine. Only one flag represents the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which is the Netherlands flag. So how then are we equal islands when we do not all have the same opportunity to represent the kingdom? And you can go on and on. We've heard a lot about, so I don't need to repeat, I think you did a very awesome job, Madam Member of Parliament, explaining what happens, the consequences of colonization on our island, and you did not miss anything. So I appreciate that that is recognized here, and it's a part of our story in St. Martin. So I don't need to do it. But what is important is that the people have now internalized this and starting to see themselves as inferior. Well, they used to, because I think it's changing. But when you start to accept your colonial status, you even accept that you are inferior and that the Europeans are superior. And that is affecting the way our people behave, the way our young people deal with problems, etc. And we have constant interference by the Netherlands, in our day-to-day affairs. Our elected members of parliament, elected members or appointed members of government cannot govern because the Netherlands is imposing their desires on who should be elected and when who should serve. And that is everyday interference. Okay, did I go backwards? The United Nations Committee for Elimination of Racial Discrimination has created a report in 2021 where it says the Netherlands has been in clear violation of Article 73 of the United Nations Charter by not acknowledging the right of self-determination nor the right to self-governance of the former Netherlands Antilles. This is not our findings. This is a finding by the United Nations. And they also found that an unequal distribution of power whereby the Netherlands continues to interfere and impede in the autonomous affairs of the former Netherlands Antilles. Reparations. Some of us on the island are calling for reparations in addition to our independence or as part of our independence package. But both the Dutch Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Mark Rutte, and the Dutch King have issued reluctantly an apology for their involvement in slavery and colonialism, but they refuse to talk about reparations, number one, and they're effectively ignoring the magnitude of the damage caused by the actions of the Netherlands towards the people of the islands. And so when we get this occasional recognition that their colonization has caused underdevelopment of our people, they stop. They do not go as far as to acknowledge the magnitude and the responsibility of the Netherlands to pay reparations in the form of development framework, which is what we are asking for. So we, the people of St. Martin, want to be free to determine our own affairs, as you've heard this morning, to empower our future generations in the form of independence from both the Netherlands and France. We want relisting of our islands on the United Nations list of non-self-governing territories. We are asking for a UN-guided or monitored referendum because their history has shown us that they are not to be trusted where the referendum is concerned. We have seen what they have done to our other islands in the Caribbean. When we do have a referendum, they also manipulate the outcome of the referendum. You saw in New Caledonia what has been happening. And we want reparations in the form of a reparatory justice developmental framework. The conference team, can you guys get on that? Is it possible to do that? To play the link? I'm not sure. But the conference theme was, for this conference, chosen by a St. Martin motto, a popular St. Martin motto, that was made popular in a song by one of our legendary artists, Lino Hughes, called St. Martin is My Home. I'm not sure if the guys are able to pull it up, but what I want to highlight are the lyrics to the song. I'm not a good singer, so I'm not going to sing. But it says, St. Martin is my home, and I'll do but anything to make her bloom. We think of it, we dream of it in the morning, night, and noon. St. Martin is sweet home, and to it I'll give my life to keep it shining with the sunshine that comes out in the morning. And then what he talks about is that we've made the sacrifice. It is the people of St. Martin that were abandoned by the Netherlands and France at the time when it was more lucrative to go to Curaçao or to Guadeloupe, Bastia. It was the people of St. Martin that sacrificed to create this gem that we have now in the Caribbean. And he says, with our smiling faces, we are known as the friendly island in the Caribbean. We didn't choose that name. That's what was given to us. We shared the hard times. Now nobody want to leave it up to no one who doesn't know or care. Because what is happening now, you have others that are coming into St. Martin and saying, I have a Dutch passport, I have a French passport, And what this song used to say, that he's dead, but we still sing this song. It says, we don't want to give this up to one who doesn't know or care about yesterday's, today's hard times to bear. St. Martin is my home, and I'll do anything to make it bloom. So I'll repeat the chorus. But what is important, all I see before me is one island, one people, with one destiny. And when I look around, all I see is one island. Y'all want to sing it? No, okay. One people, one destiny. And when I look up, one island, one people, one destiny. So come together. I can't sing. Thank you, Baku Group. Thank you, Big. I can't say, all I can say, my heart is full. Thank you, the people of Azerbaijan, for this opportunity. And now I call on Mr. Abbasov to give us some words on the workings of the Baku Initiative Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda, for such amazing presentation and for your contribution to the decolonization process. And dear conference participants, it is great privilege for me to present the Baku Initiative Group's activities for last 2 years. As well known, the Baku Initiative Group established during non-alignment movement in July of 2023. And there is crucial fact that Baku Initiative Group was established by the representatives of colonized regions. During the international conference dedicated to elimination of colonialism in frame of non-alignment movement. And especially there were representatives of New Caledonia, French Polynesia, Martinique, Guadeloupe, and French Guiana. So these representatives became first members of the Baku Initiative Group's General Assembly. And one of our main missions is supporting your fair struggles against colonialism and neocolonialism under the international norms and principles. Thank you very much. And our strategy, our cooperation, as I mentioned before, in 2023, we started close collaboration with 5 French overseas territories, plus Corsica and Comoro Islands. And as you see, we are growing. So we started cooperation in 2024 with 14 colonized regions, and some of them African countries which are independent, but unfortunately still suffering from the neocolonialism, the new type of colonialism. And our international, the most famous part of our activity, our international events. We organized more than 20 international events dedicated to decolonization, dedicated to consequences of colonialism and neocolonialism. Some of these aforementioned events hold at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, New York, and Vienna. And I'm sure that you are thinking about that. What is the outcome of these aforementioned events? The outcome of these aforementioned events is conveying the appropriate information on current situation in these colonized regions to the international community. Our publications. We, as an international NGO and think tank, prepared and published several reports. We published also research studies and articles dedicated to decolonization, dedicated to consequences of neocolonialism. Also, the Baku Initiative Group submitted and delivered reports to different intergovernmental organizations. For instance, last time we submitted the alternative report to the United Nations Human Rights Committee, and we delivered the statement on this report of the committee on the ongoing escalations in New Caledonia, in Martinique, and other French overseas territories. And as a result of this submitted report, the committee required the French government to present the report on additional using of military forces, arrests of representatives of nationalist and independence movements, and also escalations in New Caledonia and Martinique. Memorandums, the crucial part of our activity. We signed 3 memorandums with colonized regions such as Bonaire, Mayotte, and French Polynesia. And I would like to highlight that we cover not only political issues, we cover educational, environmental, and health directions which described in these memorandums. And also, I would like to highlight that Baku Initiative Group is not an international NGO which just conduct international conferences and other various different events. We also, as Baku Initiative Group, me and representatives of General Assembly of our organization participated at the various international platforms such as Non-Alignment Movement Parliamentary Network, United Nations Human Rights Council, and International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. It's a UN Human Rights Committee. And dear participants, I would like to wish all peoples who suffered from colonialism to achieve and keep the such core values such as union, liberty, and independence. And with our mutual efforts and appropriate actions, I firmly believe that we will eliminate the colonialism in 21st centuries. But I believe that it will be soon. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbasov. This, for me, seems to be the core of this conference.
Water?
The centerpiece of this conference.
You want water?
We're going to have a conversation.
We gotta go.
And
Drink
when
it
I say
fast, drink it
we-
fast.
Am I getting a feedback there? Okay. All right. So we're going to have a conversation with members of the delegation of St. Martin who are here today. And I'll be moderating that conversation. We can't have everyone on stage at the same time, so I'm going to divide them into groups, and they will come on stage and sit down here, and we'll talk
It's both of us.
about our homeland and the experience, the direct experience of living and functioning within a colony. First off, let me call on
Is you going first?
Miss Pamela Godden. Pamela Godden is a former minister. She was in charge of labor, social affairs, and health. So she was the minister, not too long ago, actually. And I'm going to call on another former minister, who was the minister in charge of works, public works, and infrastructure. And he's also the founder and leader of a political party that has representation in the current parliament of St. Martin, Mr. Christopher Emmanuel. Oh, okay. Well, let's start this conversation by one thing both of you have in common is having functioned as ministers, right? What is it like to be a minister in a colony? Can you put on your, yeah. No, it's not on. Let us see very quickly. Okay, say something. Hello. It's supposed to be on. Yeah. If not, let's. Hello? Can we use this one instead? Okay. All right, say something again.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Okay. All right. Sorry for that little technical glitch. And so the question was, just to start the conversation, what was it like for you, each one of you, having served in the government of St. Martin? What was it like being a minister in a colony?
Well, what I can say, being the minister of health, you can hear me?
Can we get?
Testing. My mic is on.
Yeah.
You have to switch yours.
What I can say as former minister of health, social and labor, my experience being a minister for a colonized island is that sometimes when you want to make certain decisions that is in the well-being of the country, there are certain things that keep you back because of being part of a constellation that you have to follow certain protocols and certain rules and regulations. Like for instance, when it comes around health. In the health sector, it had certain decisions that I wanted to take as a minister in the sense of bringing in doctors from the region that can better suit and serve the different type of ailments and illnesses that our country was facing. And I had to follow rules in the sense of we only could bring in doctors from Holland. So that's one of the things that when you are ruling or when you are managing a country and there are stipulations that are basically giving you not the opportunity to do the right thing, then you are forced to do things that you're not totally in agreement with. Even though you know that there are other better opportunities out there, you still have to follow something that knowingly in your heart, you know that there are better chances for the country. So those are some of the things that, like for instance, in that capacity, as a Minister of Health, I can say that was very disturbing for me.
Okay.
When it comes to the social aspect, the president of One St. Martin said, Dr. Rhoda Arimel, and also our Member of Parliament, Mr. Franklin Myers, all of us have experienced that sometimes your hands are tied. Your hands are tied when you want to make certain steps forward towards a better future for the generation that is coming. You know that there are better opportunities. You know that there are boundaries that you need to take into account, but you cannot step over. So it's not easy to run a country when you are a colonized island. It's not easy to run a country like that because you have to take a lot of things into account, and sometimes you make the best of decisions based on the situation, but you know that there are different and other opportunities that can be taken had you not been under the scrutiny of being a colonized country.
Okay. And Mr. Emmanuel.
I would take it from my colleague aspect. Can you imagine being elected in your country and then you're appointed a minister in your country, but you're always constantly reminded that there is this entity that is watching you. You have to be careful because the governor is watching you. You have to be careful because this is not how the Dutch think it should be done. You have to be careful because it's not the norm or how the Dutch feel this is the way it should go. And if they don't like your decision, the prosecutor is not going to go. There's always a reason why they come to control how you do things in your country. You get the sense that I am free but yet not free because I always have to look over my back. I always have to wonder, if I do this, what's the consequences of this? Not from your people, but from the Dutch government, from the Netherlands. And the Netherlands wouldn't directly come and say, this is the problem. They use the governor. He wouldn't sign that off. This wouldn't pass because you as a minister don't have the final say. Your word is not the final word. You either have to get the blessing or the signature from the governor. The governor in your country represents the king of the Netherlands, not your people. So imagine you are elected by your people. The majority appoints you to become a minister. You make a decision for your country. And if the Dutch government doesn't like that decision, he uses the strong arm of the governor not to approve your decision when no one votes for him. He's just appointed by the Dutch government. He's just appointed by the Dutch government. So you have 22,000 people that went to the polls, voted for you, but one person that's appointed by the governor can make a decision and overrule what 20,000 people has decided. And I say it all the time. Yes, you have a government. Yes, you represent your people. Yes, you have autonomy, but autonomy is not freedom. And we are still a colony.
Okay.
That's how I feel operating as a minister.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to add on to that. And basically, when it comes in the section of labor, we as a colony, we also experience that your own people does not get the high positions inside of their own country. The high positions, even though you're qualified, because we are and we have qualified St. Martiners living on the island and studying overseas. But what does happen? When they apply for the job, they do not get a job. But they go outside, The Dutch people get the job, and they come with all the perks that could have been given to our qualified people, but then you get the Dutch taking over those high positions, and they are placing them in strategic places, strategic companies, organizations of the island, which is basically like a takeover again from the country again. So you are finding that what has happened in the past is given now a different type of shadow, but it's the same thing that is happening.
Okay.
It's the same disguise. It's just that our people are not getting the opportunities. So the generation, the new generation that is coming, can aspire to reach to the top. They are not motivated enough to reach there, even though they are qualified. They will be recognized outside and not in their own country, because high positions is not good for their own people. It's good for others, but not for our own. So these are things that, as a country, as a colonized country, and you will experience. So it can be very demotivating for the younger generation, and that's why we are fighting. And I stand by Dr. Rhoda with this One St. Martin for the fight, because it's not for us. We are fighting, but we are not going to experience the fruit of our labor, but it's the generation after that is coming after us. And that's the reason why we have to do this fight now.
Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. No, I was just going to interject there, Pamela, that in Zimbabwe, the same was said when Ian Smith said that there would not be independence for Zimbabwe. It was then Rhodesia. In 1,000 years. Then it became in my lifetime. Then before you knew it, they had this conference in Lancaster, and 6 months later, Zimbabwe was born. So don't say it may not happen in your lifetime, because the seeds that you sow in now, they have a way of germinating and growing very, very fast. Okay. I want both of you also to address the issue, since apart from being former ministers, you're a member of parliament in Mr. Emmanuel's case. You led your own political parties. How do you function as a political party in a system that is obviously colonial? So what is your experience as party leaders, political party leaders, within this context of a colony? You want to go?
Go, okay. Ladies first. What I can say is that even though we are doing elections on the Dutch side, the fight is for St. Martin, French and Dutch, because both sides are experiencing the same problems. So, like Dr. Rhoda Arundel said, there is a border, but it's an imaginary border, because the families are one. We have families on both sides. We have families in the neighboring countries. So whenever we are putting a fight for our side, we are discussing topics that we are experiencing on the Dutch side. French side most likely is experiencing as well. So we are not only fighting for the Dutch side, we are fighting for entire St. Martin, French and Dutch. Even though it's ruled under different jurisdiction, it's still one country for us. So that's what you have to keep in mind when running your political party. You're not just running it for the Dutch side alone, you're running it for the population of country St. Martin.
Okay. And Mr. Emmanuel, You happen to be
It's a,
straddling
it's
both
a-
sides, right?
It's a legitimate question that you ask,
Yeah.
and it's a good question that you ask. I started a new political party, and I started a political party to give the people of St. Martin the opportunity. But it's a reason why I call it Nation Opportunity Wealth, because we speak about the nation, not just a side. We don't see a Dutch side, nor do we see a French side. And yes, you have to take part in elections to be recognized. Even though you know you're in a colonial setting, you must imprint your footprint in the system that you intend to change. You can't stay on the sideline. Let me show you something. You'll think I had this plan. Let me show you something. This is a French passport. This is mine. I'm a French citizen. This is a Dutch passport. This is mine. I'm a Dutch citizen. I don't speak Dutch. I don't speak French. I am a St. Martiner, not Dutch, not French. But I have no choice. So when we say we represent an island, we don't represent the Dutch, we don't represent the French. We represent ourselves as St. Martin people. So you must get involved. You must be part of the political system that you know is temporary to change. Like you said, it may not happen in my lifetime, but it will happen sometime.
Okay. Since both of you mentioned this issue of seeing the island as one, in terms of campaigning, isn't it so that you have people voting on both sides in elections on both halves of the island?
When I
You wanna
came
speak
back,
to that?
when I came back from college, I ran on a political list on the French side. I also ran on a political list on the Dutch side. That's the. But you want to represent your country. You want to be involved in your country. I don't want to be involved in Dutch politics. I don't want to be involved in French politics. I want to be involved in St. Martin politics, and only St. Martin politics. I don't dream French. I don't dream Dutch. I dream St. Martin, and only St. Martin. My issue is neither with the French or the Dutch. My issue is making my country better. This is the reason why I'm in love with Azerbaijan. I'm in love with the Baku initiative. I'm in love with the people that I see here. You are on the other side of my country, and this is what you're doing for us. Like my colleague made mention to me earlier, my member of parliament mentioned earlier to me, you cannot fight for it and say you're not fighting for it when people who don't know you is doing this for you. You have no choice but to fight for it.
Definitely. And Pamela, to the same issue of seeking support, I mean electoral support on both halves of the island, isn't that in itself evidence of what the song says, that you're one island, one people, with one destiny?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's a reflection of the reality. And reality is something that nobody can hide. You can say and state a lot of things on paper, but the reality, you can hide it with one finger, just like you can hide the sun with one finger. Okay. So that's our reality in St. Martin, and we live it every day. We relive it every 4 years when they have election. The reality is there in our face. So I think reality have to be reflected on paper as well. Okay. Because you can state many things, you can say many things, you can go outside an international forum stating things that is not true, but the truth remains the truth. Whether people knows about it or not, our reality is that St. Martin is one country, one island, one people, and we are fighting for one destiny.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I want to continue the conversation with this too, but I have to bring in others.
No problem.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Ms. Pamela Gordon and Mr. Christopher Emmanuel, former ministers and leaders of their own political parties. I'm going to call on this gentleman, and I have a long history. He's a member of parliament. He has been before. As a matter of fact, he was the first minister of tourism, if my memory serves me well, of St. Martin when the island got its new status in 2010. He was the first minister of tourism, economic affairs, transport, and telecommunications. He's been around politics all his life, I would say, right? And right now, he's the founder and leader of his own political party that got elected in the last election in August this year to the Parliament of St. Martin, the Honorable Mr. Franklin Myers. Can you join me, please? Welcome. Please take a seat.
Mic check.
Now, like I said, you've been around politics. You've also been around sports and all of that for years. We were talking earlier about how the island is one and indivisible, right? Not only in politics, not only in political campaigns, but in our daily lives, right? How have you experienced that oneness? And let me go further so that I can juggle your memory a bit. Being part of government, of coalition government, and having your own party be part of that coalition with probably other political parties that are not necessarily pro-independence, and you being one of the best-known pro-independence politicians, how have you been able to navigate that?
Okay. I'll answer your first question first, and then your second one. The first question, of course, is I'm a product of that oneness. My father, his family was from the northern side, and my mother's family was from the southern side. So the St. Martin that I grew up in before, while there was always the influence of Dutch and French, in my days it was merely a name. You were from the French side or the Dutch side. But how we lived amongst each other, we lived as one people. And that's where our strength came from, our resilience, and ultimately the development of the island. St. Martin, back in the 40s and the 50s, because of some great politicians, some great businessmen, and some great leaders in our community, had a vision. And that vision was then to make St. Martin the tourism capital of the world and the Caribbean. And as such, they achieved that, which ultimately gave St. Martin's the value that it has today, and then the influence of the Netherlands and France basically said, okay, well, this is our territory, because during that whole course, we were never autonomous. At that point, as a matter of fact, we were a part of a constellation of 6 islands. And the first indication that something was wrong with the constellation, with the power distribution, was Aruba. Aruba wanted to get out of the constellation of the Netherlands Antilles and be independent. As a side note, they became full internal self-government, and they've remained within that status for the last 40 plus years. St. Martin achieved its separate status, that same status, in 2010. But if you look at the trajectory, the one thing that you can say, well, there's something as these islands become more self-aware, there's something that you can say that the people are basically saying, we want the right to determine our own destiny. And for your next question is, I believe everyone has the ability to choose what it is they want. And while my party may be in a coalition, I will have to respect their decision the same way that they will have to respect my decision. The Sualiga Action Movement is a party that was built on the principles of independence, because we firmly believe that for St. Martin to fully achieve its potential, those decisions must come from us as a St. Martin people. If St. Martin's failure was colossal, that failure will be on the people of St. Martin. And the same applies for our success. So if we are successful as a people, as we have shown we can and we will be, that also will be on us. And that is a fundamental right of every citizen of this world. The right to self-determination, the right to say, I do not feel that this is the best course of action for me, but I feel this is. And also the right to say, no, I do not feel that what you're imposing on me works in the best interest of my people.
Yeah, okay. But you very well know that the Dutch in particular, in the case of the southern part of the island, would say, well, but you have all the autonomy in this world. The only thing we take care of is defense, foreign affairs, good governance, and the guarantee of human rights. Those are the only 4 areas that theoretically they take care of. But when we talk of good governance, isn't that the framework they use to intervene in the daily governance of the island?
Correct. And again, while anyone may say these are only the 4 things, or 5, or 2, or 1 thing that you take care of, it's reverse. We as a people, we as a country, should be able to say, these are the things that we want you to take care of, or these are the things we want to handle ourselves. And as such, that autonomy comes with limits. Both the Netherlands and France are a part of the European Union,
Right.
which is a constellation of European states. But when it comes to the European Union infringing on the rights of both France and the Netherlands, they stand up and say, wait, you are overstepping your bounds here.
Yeah.
We're a part of this constellation. But that right always remain with the citizens of the Netherlands, and France is a fundamental right in which they can say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. Just a couple of years ago, England, the British Empire, which was England in particular, which was part of the European Union, opted to come out. Brexit, which became famously known as Brexit. But that goes back to the fundamental right of the people of that country to decide whether they want to or not. And that's all St. Martin is asking for, that fundamental right to say yes or no.
Okay. Well, and we've had 2 referenda.
Correct.
The first one in 94. I remember that you and somebody else I wouldn't mention were about the only 2 young politicians at the time that saw it fit to vote for independence.
Correct.
Then we had a second referendum in 2000, and we've seen a progressive increase in the support for independence amongst the population. What do you think will happen if we had a third referendum now?
I think independence will win. And the reason I say this, because people are, you see, the taboo and the stigma that has typically been applied to independence cannot be applied anymore. Why is it that the independence in which we seek from countries that are independent themselves, that have that fundamental right, again, to decide what is right for them and what is right for their constituents? This is not a tit for tat. This is not something in which St. Martin is saying we are going to fight the Dutch or we are going to fight the French. This is something we are saying that we, based on our basic human right and that right to decide what is right for us as a people, as a country, as an island, we want to be independent.
Okay. And we're right here in Baku, Azerbaijan, and I believe Mr. Emmanuel mentioned earlier how important it is to have this kind of support on the international arena.
Yes.
Tell us, what do you see, how do you view this kind of international support for a movement in St. Martin?
Interestingly enough, we were in a campaign in this year parliamentary election, and the first time I had heard of Azerbaijan was when Dr. Arundel traveled to Azerbaijan in July. That was the first time during the election process. And that was the first time I've heard of it. She called me a couple of weeks ago and said she was asked to put a delegation together and she will be the delegation leader. If I will be interested in joining, I said, of course, you can put me on that trip. And I came. And one of the things that warmed my heart today when I walked into this, and my colleague Christopher Emmanuel said it, I said, how are we as a people to not want to fight on our side of the world for independence while there are people on this side of the world in Azerbaijan that is standing up for us and bringing our plights internationally and wanting to fight for us. I believe that, I believe we have a friend in Azerbaijan, and I thank the Baku Initiative group for bringing this exposure, to the world. And it warms my heart to know that we have a friend and someone who's listening to our concerns.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Franklin Myers.
Thank you so much.
We're going to invite 2 other
And I would
members.
I would like to thank the people of Azerbaijan and the Baku Initiative Group for inviting us and hosting this conference. It's with a deep sense of appreciation that we say thank you to you and for your hospitality and for your graciousness as we traveled across the world to come for this conference and for you preparing to receive us. Thank you so much on behalf of the people of St. Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we move on, and I think this would be the last couple that I'm going to be talking to. in this conversation. Hope that you follow in what they're saying, because the importance of this, especially for the independence movement on St. Martin, is to realize that we're not alone in this struggle, that we have the people of Azerbaijan, we have the big Baku initiative group backing us in this struggle, and I believe it gives us more motivation to carry on the struggle. And the next person I'm going to call on the stage is somebody you heard earlier, Dr. Rhoda Arundel. Like I said, she's the face of the independence movement on St. Martin right now. Dr. Arundel and Ms. Julian Dennis. You guys traveled long and far, right?
Hi.
Now, let me start with Julian. Just tell us who Julian is and how you got into this struggle yourself.
Okay, my name is Julian Dennis, and I'm from the north side of the island, which is the French side of the island. And I got into this because every step you make as a citizen, you're faced to like be downgraded. And I was like, this can't be normal. When does my rights come out? When do I get to express and show me? Because you don't learn it in school, and there's nothing that of you that is remaining. Everything is just disappearing.
Okay. And I don't have to ask you, Dr. Arundel, how you got involved in this.
Can you hear me? It's on? Okay. How did I get involved in this? I'm 58 years old.
Oh, young.
Yes, I started when I was 16 years old. I was a teenager. And why did I do it? I was in school in the Dutch colonial system, where my language of instruction is Dutch, but I speak English, where the history I'm taught is about European history and European great men, but nothing about Africa, nothing about Caribbean, nothing about, and I was, as a student, I was often angry. I didn't like going to school. I didn't like my teachers. They were primarily from Europe. And, you know, I never went, I can't say this in front of my daughter, but I didn't go to school a lot because I got very tired. I didn't like my school. But there was Bob Marley. I don't know if you guys know Bob Marley, reggae star. Bob Marley was singing conscious lyrics, freedom, South Africa, liberation, Nelson Mandela, and I'm in school, Bob Marley, school, Bob Marley, and I said, something is wrong here. And I started reading, I started looking, and then I met the great Lassana Sekou, a poet from St. Martin, when I was 16, and I was telling him, you know, who is Marcus Garvey? And he said, oh, you, and he introduced me to the struggle of the South African people. I heard this on the radio. I heard it in Bob Marley, but I didn't know it. And say, remember, this is no internet, no cellular phone. This is a long time ago. And I started paying attention, and Lassana and I would communicate from New York to St. Martin. Because in St. Martin, not too many people are speaking of liberation. You're in a colony, you're educated in the colony, you're forced to learn the colonial system, but Bob Marley was singing the music. Oh, you know, if you know, I love music, and Bob Marley was playing the music, the consciousness, and I said, oh, there is a different story. And I started my investigation for that different story. That's how I started.
And that led you into the independence for St. Martin.
And that, right. And then I went to study United States of America. I came back. I became SMICO,
Yes.
St. Martin. We have a group before 1SXM. We have a group called St. Martin Educational Cultural Organization of members from the north and the south. Christopher Emmanuel, where is he? He's gone. And their mother was one of my colleagues, and I was the baby. But these were St. Martin people who were fighting against French colonialism, Dutch colonialism. We're doing this together. And I said, I want to be a part of that. And so I joined that. When I finished my studies in America, I came back and I joined that. And then that has been the journey. What can we do? Who is where? Who will help us? Please, please, please. And Baku Initiative Group said, we hear you, we hear you. And I'm here.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Julian, where did you go to school? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I went to school on the north side, the French side, in the French system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was that experience, going to school, being taught in French by French teachers?
Well, when I started, I remember when I started in school, I was born on the island of St. Martin, and then my mom is from Anguilla, so we went to school. I began school in Anguilla, and then we moved back to St. Martin. And when I started school, I didn't know how to say anything in French, and I remember it was kind of hard, but based on the basics that we learned in Anguilla, we quickly catch on what they were saying and how to go about it. But it was very difficult in a way because you speak English, and when you go in, you hear French and you're like, okay.
So at home you spoke English?
Yes, at home we speak English.
But in school you were taught in French?
In French.
Okay. Now, that is the reality of St. Martin, you know.
And Anguilla.
And I think what we probably have failed to recognize is that that in itself is part of the resistance against colonial rule. That at home, people would speak their own
hometown language.
Socialize in their own language, turn their back on the colonial language, and only be forced in the school setting to learn that colonial language. Now, Dr. Arundel, you're a linguist. Tell us how this impacts on the learning process and the development, both mental, psychological, of the St. Martin child who is forced to learn mathematics, physics, chemistry in a language that is not his.
Well, I'll start with my story. Because you're conditioned, it's not even learning, it's conditioning. When I went to United States for school, I'm 18, 19, I couldn't count in English. English is my language, right? I could count, 1, 2, 3. But when I got to 20, I said 1, 2, 3, and then I'd get to 20, and I would switch to Dutch. 21, 22, 23, because the brain is doing that. And that's why my passion has been the impact, I will talk a little bit about this later, the impact of language on learning, but also the Honorable Member of Parliament from Azerbaijan said it earlier, how you erase, because you're losing something to get something else. And what happens is that the children who are forced, you can pass the exams, that's not the thing. The majority are not finishing school. So 10% may graduate, but 90% drop out, or a high dropout rate. So we have a society of high dropouts in the French part and the Dutch part, high dropouts. The way the system is structured, only 10% get the best teachers, the best books, the highest level of academic preparation. those who are good linguistically. And it's primarily young men, boys, young men that are disenfranchised, so we are losing our boys in education. It's geared towards women. Women are, you look at this room, lovely women, and they're going on, but our boys are falling behind. And what do we get? A society high of crime. We have a lot of criminality among our young population. They're not successful in school. They're not successful in the job market because, as the Honorable Former Minister said, the job market, French and Dutch, they put the conditions for jobs for Europeans. And they have the degrees, and they have the expertise, and they have everything. And our children who are not reaching this academic preparation, they're not getting these jobs.
Plus, they advertise those jobs
And they advertise the jobs in Europe on the internet. So anyone with a French passport or a Dutch passport can come for a job in St. Martin, and sometimes in St. Martin, people don't even know that job is available. Sometimes. The higher, most importantly, is the impact on the judiciary, on justice. On the French part, you can talk about that situation with justice. On the Dutch part, if you are accused and you speak no Dutch and you go to court, you don't understand what's happening to your life because the lawyer is speaking Dutch, the judge is speaking Dutch, the accused is waiting for the translator to tell you what is happening. And I see people in court and they're talking to each other. The judge, the lawyer, and the accused has no idea what is happening with his fate. And he has to wait for the translator to tell him what they're saying about his life. That's the reality. The judges are Dutch. The majority of the lawyers are Dutch because Dutch is the language of the judiciary. And justice, our police officers, to serve and to protect, must first learn Dutch to be police officers, yes. But nobody in the community is speaking Dutch. So when they stop you for traffic, they don't speak Dutch. But if they don't speak Dutch, they cannot be police officers.
And they give you the fine in
And
Dutch.
they give you the fine in Dutch. You're lucky if you can read it or you pay it, you know? Can you speak to the situation and the injustice, judiciary in Marigot?
Right. Okay, I have never been to a court. And, well, when I was younger, yes, but big, no, because I try not to, like, get too close because I have a temper. So I know from hearing, it's the same as you said, that...
and you have to go to Guadeloupe.
We have a court, a main court in St. Martin where being questioned and so forth, but the majority goes to Guadeloupe, and the imprisonment, the detain is in Guadeloupe. So our youths don't stay on the island, and it's very difficult for the parents. We hear they cry every day, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So imagine
so it's not something that is pleasant,
right?
Because the parent is suffering, the child is suffering, and you don't know their well-being, how they are treated abroad. So,
well, isn't it so that you know, one of the principles of justice is that you should be judged in a language that you understand by your peers, people who look like you, people who share the same culture as you. And when we talk of the colonial system, we very seldom focus on the justice system. But we feel it in our bones.
Yeah.
I think earlier, Mr. Emmanuel referred to the prosecutor knocking on your door.
Yes. If they feel like.
Yes. Now, you have a little, not a little, quite a lot of legal background.
Oh.
So one thing that maybe you don't know about Dr. Rhoda Arundel is that she's this close to becoming a lawyer herself. So, can you speak a little bit more to that whole system in which, you know, you just get a knock on your door, almost like the Gestapo, you know, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, you just wake up to that knock, and there before you, you
12
have
people with
12
armed
people
military.
armed to the teeth and saying that they come to detain you
Yeah.
or to bring you for questioning.
Yeah. So, no, what is very important, and I think the audience here should know this, in the justice system in St. Martin, whenever the powers feel like they can question you, and they open an investigation, and the investigation can last for years. And what they will say, you are under investigation. So they come to your house when they want, like people like us who are very vocal, they will say they suspect you of something. Corruption, it's always corruption. And they will come with the bulletproof vests and a big car to make an impact, to create an impact, to come to take you for questioning. And then they put you in, they go through the period, and they never close the investigation. So maybe 10 years, some people 13 years under investigation. And during that period, you cannot be appointed in government, you cannot get, so there are certain things that you cannot do with your life because you are under investigation. And then if you're appointed as a minister, for example, they will say, well, you cannot serve as minister because you are under investigation. This is using the system of oppression to further oppress. And then the narrative is, well, there is corruption, and we need the Dutch and the French to get rid of corruption on the island. That's the narrative.
Yeah. Now, let's speak about corruption. Let's speak about corruption. Whenever they speak about corruption, when the colonial authorities speak about corruption, they targeting basically our leaders, particularly the political leaders. Why do you think that is so?
It's a template, right?
Yeah.
It's a template. Remove the leaders from the people, right? And then the people say, oh my God, we need the Dutch to help us. Or the French, same thing. We need the French. Let the French come to save us from corruption. It's same template.
So you're saying then that this is by design?
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yes.
Okay.
It's an old template. We see it in all the colonies. We see it recently, New Caledonia, you see it, Saba, Stasia, with the Dutch. It's the same story. St. Martin, Curaçao.
But how does that sit with the population itself? In the north, you know, do people believe that their leaders are corrupt?
Well, on the north side, we don't. Well, we never had a big say on the corruption, but I know that viewing on the south side, when they say a minister is being an act of corruption, we the citizen, we like, oh, so you came, everything that they do, you have the final say and they are the ones corrupted. So it raises question, how can you judge them without not judging yourself? Because you are the one that has the final say. So why is my people punished for something that you did?
I think that's a very interesting perspective that you brought on this whole issue, that of the hierarchy in terms of who is ultimately responsible for certain acts within or without or outside government. Now, in the case of the South, for example, we've seen certain people, political leaders, politicians, targeted. Now, to Julian's point, you have often, or it seems as if, not one Dutch man or woman is corrupt.
Is corrupted.
No Europe.
Right?
Yep.
No corrupt Europeans. Never.
Yet you have
Never.
hundreds of them working in government, in private companies, but we've never heard of any
never corrupt.
knock on a Dutchman's home, to detain them for questioning regarding any corruption. And as a matter of fact, in the few cases that we got to know about, they were shipped out back to Europe with no further consequences.
No consequence. Yeah. Or information.
Or information,
Yeah.
right. So when you have a situation like that, how do you maneuver and how do you get the message out that, hey, this is what is happening?
You know, I think she's gone, the member of parliament from Azerbaijan, she talked about the consequences of colonialism. One of these things is this: when you repeat corrupt, 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 the people start to believe it. They start to accept it. They repeat. So now it starts from the narrative, now they repeat it. Now they internalize it, they believe it, and then everybody who's a politician is a suspect, automatically. So they have no respect, they don't regard politics as something positive. They look at it as they go to get money, they go to get corrupt, they go to, and that's the only thing of politics. And the only person who's not corrupt is the European man. He's never corrupt.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Well, hopefully, let me ask you this. Can you paint for us a picture of what an independent St. Martin might look like?
Me?
Yeah, either one
You?
of you.
Start with you. You start, Denise.
Independence St. Martin would look like my dress.
I love it.
Happy, colorful.
I love it.
Happy and colorful.
Yes.
Okay,
Just
right.
beautiful from the inside out. Real, friendly island back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me,
Yes.
Independent St. Martin looks like the story in Fire Spill in Lasana's Brotherhood of the Spurs. In Brotherhood, this is a story. This is a short story. There's a St. Martin woman. Her name is Akila Lakshmi. And there's a man. What I'm saying is this. St. Martin is now a combination of people from everywhere. They're mixing. They are together producing children. These are the leaders of St. Martin. These are the ones that should be making the decisions, not a man in the Netherlands, not a king in the Netherlands, not our children having to bow. They do this, bow to a European king. The queen, the former queen was just visiting. They bring the children outside with the flags. African children are bowing to a European king and queen. That's not the future. Independent St. Martin is a free, sovereign state in the Caribbean, at the table of Caribbean discussions about the development of the Caribbean, in partnership with countries like Azerbaijan, partnership with countries in Africa, partnership in countries in Asia, saying, this is what we want, these are the relations we want, not the Netherlands or France tell us who can be our friends and who can be our enemies. That's my independent St. Martin.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned the whole issue of, being part of the international community. We have seen, and this will be maybe the last question I want to throw at both of you, the whole issue of reparations and reparatory justice. The one SXM association is part of is an observer the CARICOM Reparations Commission. What is really the fight here? For people outside who are looking and saying, what are they talking about? What is this reparations thing about? You mentioned in your presentation that at the end of slavery, official end of slavery, the enslavers were paid compensation, handsomely too, but the enslaved got nothing, were not paid. Is this a form of getting that payment now, centuries after?
You want to say something? No? Yeah. Okay. It's not just the payment, because a lot of people think about it in the compensation. For us in the Caribbean reparations movement and in One St. Martin, it's part of a developmental framework. We were underdeveloped as a people, and again, the member of parliament said so many beautiful things today. We were underdeveloped as a people. Our people could not go to school for a long time. Our people have bad diets as a result of slavery. So we have high incidence of diabetes and high incidence of certain diseases in the Caribbean that you find nowhere else in the world. It's because of this situation with slavery. So we were underdeveloped economically. Spiritually, we are disconnected from our spirituality. African people's spirituality is not the practice in the Caribbean, it's European spirituality. So we are disconnected from our spiritual selves, our physical, our economic, etc. So we are underdeveloped. And we are saying reparations is about repairing. It's about rebuilding, reconstructing. What's happening with global warming is affecting us more than most areas in the world because we are coastal communities. That too has to be addressed in the reparations package. So we are looking at a framework for reparatory justice, but compensation is also important because our people don't have land anymore. We can't afford to buy the very expensive condominiums that you see here because they don't have the good jobs, etc. So we want the developmental framework to be the starting point of reparatory justice. That is important to us.
And how do you get the ordinary man or woman involved in this?
With partners like Baku Initiative Group, the media, but you people here are going to share our stories. We are going to share the stories in St. Martin also, but the international community has to understand, and I think the minister, the member of parliament said it, until all of us are free, none of us are free. So we all have to be a part of this conversation.
Okay. Is the whole reparatory movement, is it taking root in the northern half of the island under the French colonial system?
Well, to answer that question, on the north side,
Sure.
in the schools where we are taught, right now I know of students, children that are coming up, they want to be, let's say, a doctor, a lawyer, and the teachers or the ones that they are calling themselves orientation, they orient the children to guide them. They're supposed to guide them in order for them to...
You're gone, huh?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
stop.
In order for them to choose the path to their goal, because they see it, I want to be a doctor, that's my goal. So you as an orientator, you're supposed to guide me to where I want to go. Instead, they're diverting them because the doctor can't be a doctor. He has to be working in let's say in the tourism field. They just put you back into slavery. This is how I'm seeing it. And that is something that has to change. It starts from in the school. So I tell my children, I'm your mother, I'm your educator. You go to school for a diploma. Do not leave anyone divert you. You stick to your goal. I'm going to back you. And whatever comes out of it, everyone has to come back to me because I'm your mother, I'm your creator. And that's, for me, how I will say that reparation is us taking back what they have stolen from us because they are tiffing our identity, tiffing our culture, and they are replacing it. And the honest way in order for us to get it back is that when we file for our independence, we get reparation. They have to return things back to us and compensate us in order for us to move forward.
Okay. All right. Well, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth, as they would say. We're going to take a short coffee break for 15 minutes. Thank you very much for the conversation. We'll see you back. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I suppose we can continue now. We had a little short break. Can everybody take their seats, please? I'll try. Yeah, I'm ready, and suppose everybody's ready too, okay? All right, we're going to continue from where we stopped, and we have another presentation from one of the delegates from St. Martin. I think she's ready and raring to go. She's one of the Young Turks, all right, one of the Young Turks. And it's my pleasure to ask, when we were talking about the future of St. Martin independence, well, this is the future of St. Martin independence. Ms. Jadiska van Putten, or she's being mic'd. Okay, well, can we do that very quickly, please? Otherwise, you can use the mic here. No, it's okay. All right, in the meantime, while she's being mic'd, I hope, again, we want to thank the BIG.
Big IG. We can't do jokes.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell jokes,
Right.
but this ain't no joking matter at all.
Yadiska's getting the microphone, and Fabian, let me ask you, how are you enjoying this experience so far?
Enjoying?
Yes.
This is what we've been looking for the last 40 years. So, yes, for us, those of us who've been in the struggle this long, the fact that we have a country like Azerbaijan that has gone through similar struggles of freedom, of independence, and to have an organization like the Baku Initiative Group organized this on our behalf, this is just the ultimate. We hear, as many of us have been telling all the interviewers, to let the world know that St. Martin, 37 square miles, remains a colony of the Republic of France and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It has been so since they arrived on the island. It has not changed in any significant way 4 centuries later. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Then we'll go on. I said we were going to present to you the future of independence in St. Martin, and that future is here, right here in Baku, in this hall. And I'd like to call on Ms. Jadiska van Putten, and she has a very, very interesting presentation to give you. Ms. Jadiska.
Okay.
I think so. The slide. I think Ms. Jadiska needs the slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yadiska Van Putten, and I am a youth member for One Island, One People, One Destiny. I've known Rhoda Arundel for some time, and I've heard her speeches, I've heard her standpoints, I've followed her, and now I am also an advocate for independence for St. Martin. A bit about myself. I was born to parents from Curaçao and St. Martin. I was born on St. Martin. My last name is Van Putten, which relates to the Dutch colonial legacy, and my grandmother's last name is Le Grand, which relates to the French colonial legacy. While I acknowledge both colonial legacies, I relate more with being a St. Martiner and being from the Caribbean more. And I believe that St. Martiners can also relate to this. As an example, I conducted a survey with the intent to collect information on the perception of St. Martin becoming independent. Generally speaking, surveys cover 3 crucial age ranges, so I limited my survey to persons between the ages of 15 to 30 years old. The ranges I chose were 15 to 20, 21 to 25, and 26 to 30. When asked, do you consider yourself a St. Martiner? 100% said yes. This shows that the participants identifies with being a St. Martiner. Do you believe St. Martin can be successfully independent? Most said yes. When asked how many years do they think we can achieve this, the majority said 6 to 10 years. This shows that the participants believes that independence is attainable within our generation. From those who selected no, the main points they gave was that St. Martin first has to have a sustainable income. The priorities needs to be in other places, and there has to be transparency in politics. Sorry, this is the old one. The survey insights is that my peers believe that we can be independent, we can achieve this, and the challenge we face now is our current leaders has to believe in this as well. In my opinion, our elders are stuck in a mobile cycle through fear and the lack of self-confidence. And my example for that is, this is what I know I have to do. This is how I know I have to do it. So this is how it will always be done. And I'm saying we need to break that cycle. A solution for that is to educate. Education is the key. If we remain open and educate ourselves and empower the community and the population and work with countries that have successfully declared independence from their colonies, I believe that we can do it too. The key takeaway is that the youth believe we are capable. Our leaders need to believe we're also capable. We need to empower and educate the population and collaborate with organizations such as BIG, who wants to see us achieve this. Now, again, I am Yadiska Van Putten, a youth member of the One Island, One People, One Destiny. And my vision for St. Martin is a fully decolonized country where we make decisions about our future that is within our interest, that would allow us to prosper within the Caribbean as a country, outside of the Kingdom of the Netherlands or the Republic of France. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I told you that is the future of an independent St. Martin. Fearless, focused, and believing in themselves. I like to call on Mr. Vasiv Husinov, who is head of the Department of the Center for Analysis of International Relations, one of the leading think tanks in this region. Mr. Husinov.
Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me a chance to address this distinguished audience, and particularly a chance to meet dear colleagues and friends from St. Martin. Welcome to Azerbaijan. It's a great pleasure, honor to have you here. Not long ago, we gathered here through the invitation of Baku Initiative Group to discuss the problems and challenges created by French colonialism in Africa and elsewhere. And today we are concentrating our attention on a specific area, St. Martin Island, where the people of the region still suffer from remnants of colonialism. As a researcher at a political think tank in Baku, I must admit that I heard about this island and its colonial past only a couple of weeks ago when Baku Initiative Group invited me to speak here. Here in our part of the world, we are primarily occupied by the security challenges, economic and other challenges posed by the conflicts of our region. On the one hand, the Russia-Ukraine war, on the other hand, growing instability in Middle East, as well as domestic instability in neighboring countries, all this occupy our attention, time, and focus. Therefore, it is truly commendable that the Baku Initiative Group succeeds in bringing the issues of faraway regions to our attention, as well as to the attention of international community. When I read about the history of St. Martin, I was struck by a remarkable similarity in the fates of Azerbaijan and this island. As the speakers today noted, St. Martin was divided in two parts by French and Dutch empires in the 17th century, and less than 200 years after this, two other empires divided Azerbaijan in two parts. In the early 19th century, our country was divided by Russia and Persia, and today we are in the northern part, which was under the control of Russian Empire and later the Soviet Union. And Azerbaijan regained its independence in 1991, the northern part of Azerbaijan, which was under the control of Russian Empire. And the southern part is still governed by Iran, our southern neighbor. Around 25-30 million people, 30 million ethnic Azerbaijanis are still living in the territories controlled by Iran. So in the aftermath of our independence from the Soviet Union here in the northern part of Azerbaijan, our people faced another invasion by neighboring Armenia, which occupied 20% of our territories, including my hometown, Kalbejer. I was 4 years old when armed forces of Armenia came to our village and forced us to leave. Some of my relatives who could not live in time or refused to leave their homeland were either killed or taken hostage. Our lands remained under the occupation of Armenia for around 3 decades, and in 2020, around 4 years ago, the armed forces of Azerbaijan succeeded to liberate our territories. This is the reason why we here in Azerbaijani people can deeply empathize with the tragedies and trauma the people of St. Martin have endured. We heard about their history, great presentations we had here today, and it shows that despite being divided between French St. Martin and Dutch St. Martin, The people of this island face challenges that echo the injustice of colonialism around the world. Political dependency persists as French and Dutch governments still exercise control over local governance, financial affairs. Economically, the region is heavily dependent on these foreign companies, and unfortunately, and understandably from their perspectives, they prioritize their own economic benefits rather than the benefits, the prosperity, well-being of the local people. And moreover, cultural impositions from the French and Dutch governments have at times overshadowed St. Martin's Afro-Caribbean heritage, which is a vital part of the island's identity. And as we discuss the challenges faced by the people of St. Martin, we must also celebrate the resilience and unity. Their determination to preserve their culture, their push, their desire for independence, it's a testament to their strength and to their determination for a better life, for a more independent life. For those of us from nations like Azerbaijan, where colonial legacies and struggles for sovereignty are well understood, the story of St. Martin resonates deeply. Ladies and gentlemen, the parallels between St. Martin's struggles and those of other nations around the world, including Azerbaijan, reminds us of the importance of solidarity and international advocacy. It's only through mutual understandings and collaboration that we can support such communities in their pursuit of justice, equality, and self-determination. And on this path, Baku Initiative Group is doing great work. I congratulate them for their work and wish them success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Husinov. And talking about international solidarity. No, even though St. Martin is an island, the struggle for independence does not make us an island. We need that international support. We need that international solidarity, which is what we're getting from Azerbaijan. And closer home, we do have the support of very important people within the CARICOM, that's the Caribbean community, and one of them, the ambassador of Barbados to CARICOM, who was initially supposed to be on this visit with us. He couldn't make it because of other engagements, but he sent a video, which we're going to play for you now, to lend support to this whole initiative of the Baku Initiative Group and, as, of course, of the One SXM St. Martin Association. So Mr. David Commission is also Vice Chair of the CARICOM Reparations Commission. Do we have the video ready?
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. My name is David Commission, and I bring you greetings from the Republic of Barbados in the Caribbean. I extend special greetings to the entire St. Martin contingent that is in Azerbaijan for this very important conference. Special greetings to the members of Parliament of Azerbaijan who may be present at the conference, and to the Executive Director and other officers of the Baku Initiative Group that is sponsoring this very important conference on St. Martin, one island, one people, one destiny, French and Dutch colonialism. What I really want to say to you is that we in the Caribbean, and you know, I speak as Barbados's ambassador to the Caribbean community, CARICOM. We are committed to the aims and objectives of this fourth United Nations decade for the total eradication of colonialism. We are very conscious that our region of the Caribbean is the most colonized region in the world. There are no less than 20 remaining colonies or non-independent territories in the Caribbean, and the island of St. Martin has the dubious distinction of constituting two of those non-independent territories or colonies, colonial territory of the Netherlands and half the island, colonial territory of France. We are very conscious that these various United Nations decade for the eradication of colonialism have not been very successful. In fact, the last time that a colonial territory in the Caribbean actually became independent was way back in 1983, when St. Kitts and Nevis got their independence from Britain. So it is clear that the decolonization process in the Caribbean has basically stalled, as it has stalled in many other parts of the world. And so it is very heartening to witness the moves that have in recent years been made by colonial territories like St. Martin, like Bonaire, you know, some of the developments that we have seen with the anti-colonial organizations in Martinique and Guadeloupe and French Guyana. We support these efforts. And you know, you may be aware that in 2013, CARICOM launched a reparations campaign, a campaign for reparations for Native genocide and African enslavement. African enslavement imposed by the European colonizing powers, including the Netherlands and indeed France as well. And we see a very direct connection between reparations and the decolonization movement. In fact, for territories that are still in a colonial, non-independent relationship with European colonizing powers, we say that a central component of reparations for those territories must be decolonization and independence. Because, you know, the central concept of reparations is that a crime was committed, damage was done, and reparations is the remedy that is designed to, in a sense, undo that damage. Reparations is designed as far as possible to wipe out the negative consequences of the illegal act and to re-establish the situation that would in all probability have existed if that illegal act had not been committed. And so we are conscious that before transatlantic slavery, our ancestors had their own nations on the African continent. Before our ancestors were kidnapped, brought across the Middle Passage to slave on the sugar and cotton plantations of St. Martin, in the salt mines of St. Martin, they lived in their own independent, sovereign, national polities on the African continent. And so, if reparations is about taking you back to the situation you would have been in if the crime had never been committed, then clearly the African people of St. Martin are entitled to nationhood. They are entitled to have their own nation. They are entitled to have national sovereignty and self-determination. And so the decolonization campaign should be seen as central to the reparations campaign. One of the ways in which CARICOM has reached out to non-independent territories in the Caribbean is by offering them associate membership in CARICOM. So the Caribbean community, we have 15 full member states of CARICOM, but we also have 6 associate member states, all of them being colonies or non-independent territories. And I believe that by becoming an associate member and coming into a community of sovereign, independent nation states, that could be seen as a preparation for, that could be seen as a way of transitioning towards independence. It could be seen as a preparation for independence and something that will contribute to the decolonization process. So we want to let the people of St. Martin know. We know that in the past, St. Martin has applied for associate membership of CARICOM, and I would encourage St. Martin to reassert refresh that application. Curacao, another Dutch non-independent territory, just became an associate member of CARICOM. So I would encourage St. Martin to make that move again and to bring it to a successful conclusion. And I say that because our overarching mission in the Caribbean must be to totally decolonize our region, to free it from all vestiges of European colonialism and to unify it as a strong, sovereign, independent Caribbean civilization. And that is the goal that all of us must pursue. Whether we reside in independent nations or in the non-independent territories. And so my final word to you, my brothers and sisters, is that you should feel free to reach out to CARICOM. Don't wait for CARICOM to extend its hand to you. Reach out to CARICOM. If there's some way in which you think that CARICOM can be of assistance to you in your decolonization mission, reach out. Write to the Secretary General of CARICOM, reach out to the chairman of CARICOM and tell CARICOM, what type of assistance you would like. So that it is on that note that I would wish to end. I would like to see us, come more closely together, and I would like to see CARICOM giving you, the independence fighters of St. Martin, as much assistance as we possibly can. So I end on that note, and I want to end by wishing you a very, very successful conference, and I look forward to hearing the reports and to seeing you and hearing from you once you return to our Caribbean region. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that was Mr. David Commission from the CARICOM Reparations Commission, the vice chair, as well as he's the ambassador of Barbados to CARICOM itself. We're going to go on a lunch break. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little bit hungry. So let us see if we can get some lunch. And then we come back and we continue with some letters of endorsement and things like that. All right? So we have a 1 hour, not 1 hour, 1 minute, 1 hour lunch break. See you later.